They came in shimmering ships that split the sky like silver blades, descending with peace banners and wide, curious eyes. Beings of intellect and science, their culture evolved beyond violence, their minds untouched by the brutal poetry of war. To them, Earth was a garden of chaos and contradiction, a planet of music, love, and laughter, yet scarred by endless conflict. Still, the galactic concord had marked humans as a young, harmless species, volatile, but ultimately benign. That illusion held until they met Gunnery Sergeant Mason Briggs, a battle-hardened Marine stationed at Lunar Outpost Theta. The meeting had been routine, an interspecies diplomatic exchange, all smiles and protocol, until one inquisitive alien diplomat asked what war crimes meant. Briggs' expression darkened. With a slow breath, he began to speak, not from notes or screens, but from memory, his voice low, steady, and hollow like distant thunder. He told them about black sites and scorched villages, about chemical fogs that melted lungs and drone, strikes that erased weddings. He described enemies tortured in silence, orders followed against conscience, medals pinned on uniforms still splattered with blood. The translator struggled to keep pace as alien faces turned pale, their fractal eyes wide with incomprehension. "And that's just the stuff we consider illegal," Briggs added flatly. Silence fell like a shroud. The galactic delegation, beings who had long abolished even the concept of violence, found their neural patterns stuttering under the weight of human contradiction. Peaceful? No. Beautiful, perhaps. Inventive, certainly. But harmless? Not even close. And in that moment, as the stars watched through the viewports, the universe quietly recalibrated its understanding of Earth. Not as a nursery of potential allies, but as a cradle of unpredictable gods wrapped in flesh, capable of kindness deeper than oceans and cruelty darker than space itself. The galactic delegation left Lunar Outpost Theta in silence, their once curious voices dimmed by the weight of Mason Briggs' testimony. On board their sleek vessel, silence lingered like radiation, pulsing through the corridors. Back on their homeworld of Virelia, the Council of Sentient Harmony convened an emergency session, broadcasting encrypted signals across the stars. For eons, war had been a historical concept, taught in theory, never practice. But now, confronted, with human history not as past but as present, the Virelians questioned whether they had stumbled upon a species that had tamed chaos, or simply learned to wear it better. Files marked declassified began to circulate in the upper chambers. Images of mushroom clouds, rivers dyed red, generations lost in trenches and deserts. They had seen the raw data before, but hearing it from a survivor made it real. A proposal emerged. Should humanity be observed from a distance or contained? But consensus was elusive. Many among them felt a strange draw to humans, not just fear, but fascination. Meanwhile, on Earth, Mason Briggs returned to duty, unaware of the political tsunami his words had triggered. That night, as he cleaned his rifle in silence, the stars above him blinked not with peace but with scrutiny. The next contact came weeks later, not formal, not public. A lone alien, young and idealistic, disguised in a trader's vessel, returned to Briggs. "Why did your kind invent such pain?" she asked. He looked at her with tired eyes and said, "Because we could." But then he smiled, gently, and added, "And because we wanted to stop it." He told her of soldiers who disobeyed orders to protect civilians, of medics who ran into fire, of whistleblowers who gave up everything to expose truth. He showed her the other side of war, not just the brutality but the bravery born from it. She recorded it all, not just for her people, but for herself. When she left, she no longer saw humanity as a failed experiment, but as a paradox worth understanding. Back on Virelia, her report was met with confusion, then curiosity. Could it be that the most dangerous species in the galaxy also possessed the deepest well of morality? A new committee formed, not of containment, but cautious collaboration. They called it Project Paradox. In secret, they began to study not just human war, but human conscience. And deep in the black, other civilizations listened too, some with fear, some with plans, and some with admiration. Because where others had forgotten the edge of the abyss, humanity stared into it every day, and still chose more often than not to step back. After the launch of Project Paradox, the story of humanity was no longer confined to files or whispered warnings. It became a mirror in which the galaxy saw something it hadn't in eons: moral contradiction with depth. On Virelia, scientists and philosophers began dissecting human emotion. Not just the rage of war, but the quiet defiance of conscience, the ache of regret, the strength to forgive. Some among the Galactic Council were drawn to it, finding in humans not just danger, but something strangely missing in themselves. Yet others warned that the fire was too volatile. Meanwhile, Mason Briggs had returned to Earth, unaware that he had become more than a Marine. He had become a representation, not of perfection, but of paradox. Then came the summons. Briggs was called to Virelia, not for combat, but diplomacy. As he walked the crystalline halls of their Senate, beings from dozens of worlds watched his every move, not out of awe, but to decode him. But this time, he didn't speak of war crimes or atrocities. Instead, he spoke of the light that flickers within darkness. He told them of a soldier who defied orders to shield a child, of a field medic who crossed enemy lines to save the wounded, of a mother who lost everything but still found the will to comfort others. He brought with him not just stories of blood, but stories of sacrifice, of fragile mercy. Silence fell over the chambers, but it wasn't laced with fear this time. It was reverence, reflection. But the story didn't end there. Project Paradox's findings began to spread, intercepted, studied, misunderstood, glorified. And far beyond Virelia, in the forgotten reaches of the galaxy, an ancient war-born civilization stirred, the Krill Dominion. Long silent, they had once brought empires to their knees before vanishing into myth. Now they returned, not to conquer a world, but to test a species. Their message was brief. We have mastered conquest, but you carry war in your bones and still dare to speak of peace. We challenge you. One warrior, one of ours, one of yours. Panic rippled through the Galactic Council. Virelia recalled its pacifist roots. Others declined, but Briggs, hearing the message, and simply nodded. They want to understand us, he said. Then let's show them. But he wouldn't stand alone. Lysera, the Virelian senator who once feared humanity most, now stood beside him. Other species joined, curious, hesitant, but willing. For the first time, humanity wasn't a threat in the dark. It was a light others gathered around. The terms were set. A single combat, symbolic but sincere. Not a battle of numbers, but of meaning. Briggs faced his opponent, a towering, Krill warrior bred for nothing but victory. But Briggs brought more than muscle. In his armor he carried a photo of his fallen squad, a crumpled letter from his mother, a small pouch of earth soil. When the fight began, the Krill came with fury and precision. But Briggs fought with a different kind of strength. The strength of memory, of grief sharpened into resolve. Each blow was heavy, each movement deliberate, not to destroy, but to endure. By the time they both collapsed, bloodied and breathless, it was clear, no victor. But there was a message. The Krill warrior rose slowly, looked into Briggs's eyes, and laid down his weapon. You carry pain like armor, he said, and somehow it does not crush you. The galaxy heard his surrender, not as weakness, but as revelation. That day, the Galactic Concord granted humanity full inclusion, not as children of violence, but as keepers of its memory. Not because they were harmless, but because they knew the cost of harm. Mason Briggs returned home quietly, his name now spoken not in fear, but in respect across star systems. And somewhere in the starlight, a phrase echoed softly across the void. They are not harmless, they are not monsters, they are human,